Welcome, guys. Uh, Now we are going to see the next game, the fourth game on strategy, coordination, and harmony. And this is quite a long game, guys, but I'm sure that this will be very illustrative. This game, it's King's Indian opening. The black goes for the King's Indian defense, and let's see how white attacks black. So first d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4 and d6, knight f3, castle shot, bishop e2 and e5, castle shot, knight c6, d5, knight e7, knight e1. Uh, so this is called the Gligoric variation, and both sides are ready to advance pawns in accordance with their pawn chains. But knight e8, f3, f5, g4, guys. This is really an unexpected move here. This is really a surprise. White wants to block the position on the king side, which would leave the opponent without active play. Black must play very accurately. f4. This move is playable but simplifies white's task. Knight f6 was another option which should maintain the tension. h4. White gets ready to close the position on the king side in case of any advance. h6. If instead bishop f6 was played, then white has knight g2. Here c6 was probably the best option. Active kingside play being a thing of the past, it might be time to play on the queen side. Black wants to use the a7 g1 diagonal. The white bishop cannot be placed on e3. So rook f2, securing the king side and preparing the potential doubling of rooks on the queen side. Bishop f6, rook h2 and king g7. Black has an idea to reactivate the e7 knight. It is traditionally one of black's problems in King's Indian defense. c6 was still a very reasonable and solid option. And now bishop d2, knight g8, knight g2. Black's maneuver achieved something. The white rook and knight are misplaced. Still, black's kingside pieces are cramped. Bishop e7, bishop e1, knight gf6, bishop f2. After regrouping, white's kingside is now safe. Still, white has not yet started queenside activities. Black goes for a typical approach. His next move makes sure that a lot of material will be exchanged in case white expands on the queen side. a5, knight e1, the knight goes to a natural place on d3. The c5 advance is on white's agenda. b6, and black definitely goes for a static setup. He will never play c6 and wants to be ready against the c5 advance. a3 and bishop d7, b3. White feels it is not yet time to advance to b4. He wants to prepare it more first. This is a good strategy because black lacks space and white can more easily regroup. Queen c8, rook g2. So don't rush. White prevents potential sacrifice on g4. Rook f7, Black wants to control the 7th rank. Rook c1 and king h7. b4. White goes for the advance. He is not afraid of opponent's control of the a file. It will bring nothing to him. ab4 and rook a3 and c5. bc5 bc5. Queen a8. A typical positional mistake. He did not want to damage his pawn structure, but he logs out his entire army after White's next move, dc5. After White's next dc5 was the only move. Black accepts to have an isolated weak c7 pawn, but he gets the d6 square for his pieces, especially his knight. He would also get rid of the bad e7 bishop after White recaptures the c5 pawn. c6. Of course, White takes the opportunity to paralyze Black's pieces. This move simply splits the Black army into two separate parts. Connection between them will be possibly only via c8 square. This will cause serious disorder. White's plan is clear. He wants to exchange Black's active pieces on the queen side. After that, Black's cramped pieces on the king side would be helpless when faced with White's infiltration on the queen side. If needed, a sacrifice on c7 or d6 will crush Black's defense. Bishop c8, knight b1, rook a5, knight d2, bishop a6. This just helps White. It is difficult to suggest anything better enough. Knight c4, and bishop takes a6 was good, of course. Bishop takes c4. Without that bishop, Black can only dream of counterplay on the king side. All sacrifice motives are now gone. Bishop takes c4. This bishop will later infiltrate into Black's camp via the c8 square. Knight g7, knight d3, rook f8, bishop e1, rook a7, rook b2. The plan can be to play queen c2 and rook a2, exchanging material. Rook b8, rook takes b8, queen takes b8, rook b1, queen d8, bishop f2, gaining an important tempo to protect the h4 pawn. Rook a8, knight e1, queen e1, protecting the h4 pawn was more precise. Knight f e8. Knight f8. Here instead of knight fe8, knight takes g4, f takes g4, and bishop takes h4 was perhaps the last practical chance for Black, but objectively it's still winning for White. But Black here went for knight fe8 and knight g2, rook a3, bishop b3, closing the third rank. Queen, here queen a8, queen c1, rook a5, queen c3. Step by step, the white pieces cover more and more squares on the queen side, neutralizing the black queen and rook. Rook b5, bishop c2, rook takes b1. Instead, if black would have played rook a5, then white can bring the knight to the queen side, attack with knight e1. After bishop takes b1, queen a4, bishop c2, queen a6, queen d3, queen a5. White has definitely done a great job. However, in order to make progress, he must transfer his pieces to the queen side. Temporarily, the f2 bishop and the g2 knight must protect the h4 pawn. So let's protect it with the king. It is worth noting that black cannot do the same and regroup his pieces to the queen side. It is possible only via the c8 square, which cannot be accessed by black's minor pieces. White advanced his c6 pawn, split the board into two parts, and black was unable to establish communication between them. King h2. The king is ready to protect the h4 pawn, liberating both the knight and bishop. King g8, bishop e1, queen c5, queen c3, queen b5, bishop d3. Very patiently, white neutralizes black's last active piece by forcing its exchange. Queen a4, queen c2, queen a3, bishop c3, king f8, queen b2, queen a7, bishop e1, queen a4, bishop f2, king f7, bishop b5, queen a5, knight e1, and queen a8. Finally, the black queen goes to a8 and bishop f1, queen d8, king h3, queen a8, knight c2, queen b7 is useless. White's queen can do nothing even after getting to I'm sorry, white's queen, black's queen, I think black's queen can do nothing even after getting to c8. White simply plays queen a2. Queen a4, bishop d3, king f8, queen a3. The queens get exchanged at last. The rest is simple. The white transfers his entire army to the queen side, and then after bishop d8, then king g2, bishop f6, king f1, bishop d8, king e1, g5, h5. H takes g5 would eliminate the possibility of sacrificing a piece, but would liberate the black pieces after bishop takes g5, followed by h5. Knight f6, knight b5. If black doesn't sacrifice now, then it will be impossible to sacrifice after the white bishop comes to a5 or b8. Now knight g takes h5, g takes h5, and knight takes h5. Bishop a7, knight f6, bishop b8, and knight e8. The c7 pawn is protected, but only temporary. The white bishop is headed to d7, and then bishop f1, h5, bishop h3, king e7, and then bishop f5. There is nothing wrong with bishop d7, as after knight f6, bishop f5, and knight e8, bishop g6, the game is over. King f7, bishop d7, king e7, bishop takes e8, king takes e8, bishop takes c7, bishop takes c7, knight takes c7 check, king e7, king knight e6, g4, knight g7, and here black resigned. Black made only one obvious mistake, allowing white to advance to c6. Although black's resistance was long-lived, the result of the game was never in doubt. Be careful of long pawn chains in your games. Make sure to have good communication between flanks. In this game, black could only transfer his pieces from one flank to the other via the c8 square. Unfortunately, his minor pieces were unable to access this transfer point. So, guys, I think this game would have been a good lesson to you. I hope you would have enjoyed it. I'll meet you in the next game. Thank you, guys.